Emotions are powerful. They can lift us up and they can drag us down. They influence every choice we make, every action we take, and even the way we see the world around us. But most people go through life letting their emotions make the decisions for them. You wake up, someone says something that irritates you, and before you even realize it, your day is already off track. Or you hear news that excites you, and suddenly you're making decisions based on that burst of feeling rather than clarity and thought. When that happens, emotions control you instead of the other way around. The first step to mastering your emotions is to understand them, to recognize what triggers them, and to see them clearly before they push you into action. Every person has patterns in their emotional responses. Certain situations make you anxious, frustrated, or angry. Other situations bring excitement, joy, or energy. The key is awareness. You need to start paying attention to yourself without judgment. Notice the moments when your emotions spike. Notice the physical sensations, the tension in your shoulders, the tightness in your chest, the shallow breath, the quickened heartbeat. These are signs that your emotional state is taking control. Awareness is noticing these signs early, before they take over your thoughts and actions. When you start recognizing these moments, you gain a choice. You gain the ability to decide how to respond instead of reacting blindly. Think about your daily interactions. It could be at work, at home, or even on social media. Notice the situations that consistently push buttons inside you. Maybe it's a colleague's tone, a comment from a family member, or a sudden change in plans. These are your triggers. Triggers not inherently bad, but the way you respond to them can either build you up or tear you down. Some people spend their entire lives running from these triggers, avoiding situations that might upset them, but avoidance doesn't build strength. Understanding your triggers gives it. When you know what sparks your emotions, you can prepare for it, approach it differently, and handle it with intention. It's important to explore not just the obvious triggers, but the subtle ones as well. Sometimes, it's not a big argument or a dramatic event that sends emotions spiraling. It's a small comment, a glance, or an interruption in your routine. These tiny sparks accumulate over time, and if you're not aware of them, they can quietly influence your behavior, your energy, and even your relationships. Awareness means observing yourself in real time, noticing when your emotional state shifts, and tracing it back to the source. It's like keeping a journal, but instead of writing down what happens, you're writing down how it makes you feel, how your body reacts, and how your mind interprets the situation. Over time, you'll see patterns, and those patterns are the roadmap to emotional mastery. Awareness also requires, it's tempting to blame others for how you feel. But the truth is, no one can make you feel anything without your participation. Your emotions are your responsibility, even if they were triggered by someone else. Accepting this truth is liberating. Once you stop giving your power away, you can examine each emotional reaction and ask, why am I feeling this? What is happening inside me that makes this situation so powerful? That kind of reflection is not easy, but it is transformative. It turns every emotional moment into an opportunity for learning, for growth, and for control. Pay attention to how emotions show up in your body, because your body is a reliable signal. Tension, racing thoughts, shallow breathing, restless energy, headaches, these are not random. They are the body's way of saying something is happening that you need to notice. The more you can tune in to these signals, the earlier you can intervene. Instead of being swept away by anger, fear, or frustration, you can pause, assess, and choose your response. The more you practice this, the more natural it becomes. You start to notice emotional patterns before they dominate your day. You start to anticipate your triggers rather than be surprised by them. Awareness is also about noticing the thoughts that feed your emotions. Emotions rarely appear out of nowhere. They are connected to what you think about a situation. When you feel irritated, anxious, or joyful, examine the thoughts running in your mind. Are they true? Are they useful? Are they helping you? Often, emotions are amplified by thoughts that are exaggerated, judgmental, or unhelpful. By becoming aware of the connection between your thoughts and your feelings, you gain clarity. You start to see that you can change your emotional response not by suppressing it, but by observing it and choosing which thoughts to hold on to. Every day offers opportunities to practice this awareness. Even small moments matter. When someone cuts in front of you in traffic, notice the irritation that rises, the tension that builds, and the story you're telling yourself about the person. When a coworker challenges your idea, notice the heat that rises, the defensive voice in your mind, and the physical reactions in your body. The more you pay attention to these moments, the more you train yourself to catch your emotions before they catch you. Awareness is not a single act, it's a habit, a practice that requires attention and discipline. Awareness is the foundation. Without it, everything else falls apart. You cannot control what you do not see. You cannot change what you do not recognize. You cannot grow if you are blind to your own reactions. Awareness is like turning on a light in a dark room. Once you see what is happening inside, you can decide how to act. You can notice when anger is rising, when fear is creeping in, when impatience takes over. You can see your triggers for what they are and choose a response that moves you forward instead of pulling you backward. It is also important to observe without judgment. Many people feel guilty or ashamed about their emotional reactions. They feel weak for being upset or frustrated. This is not productive. Awareness means noticing your emotions without labeling yourself as good or bad for feeling them. Everyone has emotional responses. The question is whether you allow those emotions to dominate your life, or whether you use them as information to make better choices. Observation without judgment builds confidence. It builds the muscle of emotional control. It allows you to respond with thoughtfulness, clarity, and calm, rather than reacting impulsively. Emotional triggers are unique to each person. What upsets one person may not affect another. What energizes one may leave someone else exhausted. That is why awareness is personal. It requires looking inward, not outward. It requires curiosity about yourself and a willingness to face uncomfortable truths. The discomfort is temporary, but the growth is permanent. Over time, you start to notice patterns. You start to recognize the situations that repeatedly spark strong reactions. You start to notice how your thoughts feed your emotions. And you start to see that awareness is not just about noticing, it is about gaining control. The most successful people in life are not the ones who never feel anger, fear, or frustration. They are the ones who notice these feelings, understand their triggers, and choose how to respond. They see emotions as signals, not as dictators. They watch themselves closely, analyze their responses, and take responsibility for every emotional reaction. This is where true freedom lies. When you are aware, you are no longer a passenger in your life. You are the driver. You decide the direction. You decide how fast to go. You decide how to respond to every turn, every bump, every challenge. Start by observing today. Pay attention to your reactions, the physical sensations, the thoughts, and the situations that trigger them. Keep track of them, study them, treat them like information about yourself. The more you know, the more control you have. Over time, awareness grows into understanding, understanding grows into choice, and choice grows into mastery. Emotional mastery is not a distant goal. It begins in the present moment, in noticing yourself clearly, without excuses, without blame, without judgment. Every emotion is a message. Every trigger is a teacher. The more you listen, the more you grow. Your emotions are not the enemy. They are your guidance system. But if you do not know them, if you do not see them, they will guide you into reactions that do not serve you. Awareness is the first step in taking control of your life. When you know your triggers, you take away their power. When you observe your reactions, you reclaim your freedom. This is the beginning of a life where you are not controlled by feelings, but where feelings serve you. Every time you notice your emotional state, every time you understand why you feel what you feel, you become stronger, wiser, and more capable of creating the life you want. Awareness is not a one-time act. It is a practice, a habit, a way of living. And it is the foundation for everything else in mastering your emotions. Without it, everything else is guessing. With it, everything becomes clear. You gain power, clarity, and control. You gain the ability to respond instead of react. You gain the freedom to live intentionally instead of being led by fleeting feelings. The journey begins here. The moment you recognize your emotions, you reclaim yourself. You begin to move from reaction to choice, from chaos to calm, and from confusion to control. Awareness is not just the first step. It is the step that changes everything. Life does not always go the way you want. People say things that frustrate you. Circumstances appear that challenge you. Unexpected events. And in those moments, it's tempting to blame others, to think that life is unfair, or to assume that your feelings are caused by someone else. But the truth is, no one can control your emotions. No one can decide how you feel except you. Responsibility is the moment when you stop pointing fingers and start owning your reactions. It is the realization that your emotional life is yours to manage and your reactions are under your control. Now, when you take responsibility for your feelings, you take power over your life. Action is a choice. Even when it doesn't feel like it, you can decide how to respond to what happens to you. It may not be easy at first. There will be strong impulses, waves of frustration, and bursts of anger or disappointment. Those feelings are real and valid, but acting on them without thought is optional. When you accept responsibility, you stop giving your power away to circumstances, to people, or to your environment. You stop being a passenger in your life and start being the driver. Responsibility also means understanding that your emotional response is a reflection of your inner state. If you find yourself constantly upset, irritated, or anxious, it is not because the world is harsh or because people are cruel. It is because your mind and heart are reacting in a certain way. The same event can create different reactions in different people. One person can face criticism and grow stronger, while another crumbles under the same words. The difference is not the event itself, but the responsibility each person takes for how they respond. Taking responsibility is saying, this is my life, these are my feelings, I choose how to act. When you own your reactions, you start to see the power of pause. Before responding, there is always a moment when you can step back, breathe, and decide. That moment is where responsibility lives. It is where you decide if your reaction will help you or hurt you. If you respond with patience, clarity, and understanding, you gain respect, peace, and control. If you respond impulsively with anger or fear, you lose ground, hurt relationships, and give away your power. Owning your reactions does not mean suppressing emotions. It means acknowledging them, understanding them, and directing them in a way that serves you. Responsibility is also about, it is easy to say, they made me angry, or that situation ruined my day. Those statements sound logical, but they are lies that give away your power. No one can make you feel anything. No one can decide your emotional state without your consent. Anger, fear, frustration, and joy are all responses that start inside you. The moment you realize this, everything changes. You are no longer controlled by external forces. You are no longer reacting to every twist and turn of life. You are in control. You are responsible. And that is freedom. When you take responsibility for your emotions, relationships improve. Think about it. How many conflicts are fueled by blaming others for how you feel? How many arguments could be avoided if each person said, "I am responsible for my own reaction"? Responsibility transforms interactions. It turns conflict into communication, frustration into understanding, and tension into connection. Owning your emotions allows you to respond with calm and clarity rather than letting anger or fear dictate your actions. It gives you the ability to listen, reflect, and act with intention rather than impulse. Taking responsibility also means reflecting on your patterns. Certain situations may consistently trigger frustration, resentment, or sadness. Instead of blaming the circumstances, examine your response. Ask yourself what is happening inside you. Ask what fears, expectations, or beliefs are being stirred. When you understand your part in your emotional reactions, you gain insight. You begin to see that your life is not a product of external events alone, but of your responses to those events. Responsibility allows growth because it focuses on what you can control rather than what you cannot. Owning your reactions is not about being perfect. You will make mistakes. You will react impulsively at times. But the key is recognizing it afterward and learning from it. Every emotional slip is a chance to practice responsibility, to observe, and to improve. Over time, you train yourself to respond with clarity and calm, even in challenging situations. You train yourself to manage your emotions rather than be managed by them. And this is the skill that sets apart those who succeed in life from those who drift through it. Responsibility is also a daily practice. It is not something you achieve once and forget. Every moment is an opportunity to take control of your feelings. When you feel irritation rising, notice it and take ownership. When you feel disappointment, recognize that it is your choice to dwell on it or to move forward. When joy or excitement comes, own it fully and let it inspire your actions. Responsibility is not just about negative emotions. It is about understanding and directing all emotions consciously. It is about being fully awake in your emotional life. Your physical and mental reactions are connected. Often, people feel overwhelmed because they are not aware of the signals their body gives. Heart racing, tight muscles, shallow breathing, all these signals are telling you that your emotional response is building. Responsibility means noticing these signals and consciously choosing how to act. You can decide to calm yourself, to breathe, to step back, and to respond with awareness rather than letting the emotion control your behavior. It is in these moments that true strength is built. Responsibility also shapes your future. Every choice you make in handling emotions compounds over time. Reacting impulsively may give temporary relief, but creates long-term consequences. Responding responsibly may feel challenging at first, but strengthens your character, builds trust with others, and increases your personal power. Every responsible reaction is an investment in yourself, in your relationships, and in the quality of your life. The power to change your circumstances starts with the power to manage your reactions. Owning your reactions is the foundation for all personal growth. Without it, you remain at the mercy of emotions, circumstances, and other people's actions. With it, you take charge of your life. You gain freedom. You gain clarity. You gain control over your decisions, relationships, and outcomes. Responsibility transforms your emotional life from chaos to order, from reaction to choice, and from limitation to empowerment. Responsibility is not optional for those who want success, peace, and fulfillment. It is mandatory. Without it, life feels like a series of random events you have no control over. With it, life becomes a canvas where you decide the colors, the patterns, and the impact. It is the point where awareness becomes action. Awareness shows you your triggers. Responsibility teaches you to choose your responses. Together, they build the foundation for emotional mastery and personal freedom. Every time a situation arises that triggers a strong emotion, take a moment to ask yourself, whose reaction is this? Who is in control? Am I blaming the outside world, or am I choosing how to respond? That single question has the power to transform frustration into clarity, anger into calm, and fear into confidence. Owning your reactions is not about suppressing your feelings. It is about channeling them, directing them, and making them work for you rather than against you. When responsibility becomes a habit, your life changes in ways you cannot imagine. You stop reacting to every external stimulus. You start acting with intention. Your relationships deepen because others feel your steadiness. Your decisions improve because they are based on clarity rather than emotion. Your energy increases because you are no longer drained by constant emotional battles. And most importantly, your confidence grows because you know that no matter what life throws at you, you have control over yourself. Responsibility is freedom. It is strength. It is the turning point where you move from being controlled to being in control. It is the moment where you realize that every feeling you have is yours. Every reaction is yours, and every choice is yours. And when you embrace that fully, life no longer feels like a battle against circumstances. It becomes a field where you direct the energy of your emotions toward growth, achievement, and fulfillment. The journey begins with awareness, but it is solidified with responsibility. You notice your emotions, and then you claim them. You stop blaming, stop complaining, and start acting with intention. The moment you take responsibility, you reclaim your life. You reclaim your power. You transform every emotional challenge into an opportunity to grow, to strengthen, and to rise above. Responsibility is not easy, but it is simple. And it is the key to mastering your emotions before they control you. Life moves fast, and emotions often hit us before we even realize what's happening. A comment, a situation, or an unexpected challenge can trigger a wave of feelings that feel impossible to control. In that split second, it is easy to react in a way that you later regret. Anger can be explosive. Fear can paralyze. Frustration can make you lash out at those you care about. The difference between being ruled by your emotions and mastering them often comes down to one thing: the ability to pause. Creating a space before reacting is the bridge between emotional impulse and thoughtful response. It is the moment where control begins. Pause is not just a physical stop. It is a mental shift, a conscious decision to step out of the immediate reaction and observe what is happening inside. When something triggers an emotional response, the body reacts first. Heart racing, muscles tightening, thoughts racing. If you allow that reaction to go unchecked, it takes control. But when you pause, you insert a moment of awareness. That pause gives you a choice. You can decide whether to respond with anger, with fear, or with calm. You can respond in a way that strengthens your life instead of weakening it. Creating this space requires practice. At first, it may feel awkward. The natural urge is to respond immediately, to defend, to argue, or to act. But the moment you resist that impulse, you begin to reclaim power over your life. It can be as simple as taking a slow, deep breath, counting to 10, or even stepping away physically from the situation. The act of pausing interrupts the automatic response and gives your mind time to process. In that small window, clarity begins to emerge. You start to see that the situation is not as urgent or threatening as your initial reaction made it feel. The pause allows you to separate the situation from the emotion. Many people treat their feelings as facts. They assume that because they feel anger, the situation is unjust. Because they feel fear, the situation is dangerous. But feelings are signals, not facts. They tell you how you are interpreting the world in that moment. By pausing, you create the space to examine the reality of the situation rather than reacting solely to your emotional interpretation. You can ask yourself questions like, what is actually happening? Is my reaction proportional to the situation? How will my response affect the outcome? This practice of pausing transforms interactions and decisions. Think about moments of conflict, an argument with a colleague, a disagreement with a loved one, or a tense negotiation. The initial emotional surge may push you to say something sharp, to interrupt, or to react defensively. But when you pause, you give yourself the chance to respond with intelligence, clarity, and empathy. The pause is the space where you move from reaction to response, from chaos to calm, from regret to wisdom. Every time you exercise this pause, you build a stronger emotional foundation. The physical sensations of emotion can be overwhelming, but the pause allows you to manage them. Notice how anger tightens the chest, how frustration tenses the shoulders, or how fear can make your stomach churn. In those moments, a conscious pause helps regulate your body as well as your mind. Slowing your breath, relaxing your muscles, and focusing on a single thought or word can reduce the intensity of the emotion. When your body calms, your mind follows. The pause is the tool that transforms raw emotional energy into something constructive rather than destructive. Pausing also creates room for perspective. Without it, you are trapped in the intensity of the moment, seeing everything through the lens of strong emotions. The pause allows you to step back, to see the situation more clearly, and to consider the consequences of your actions. You begin to realize that most emotional reactions are temporary, that the moment will pass, and that your response can shape the long-term outcome. It is the difference between acting out in anger and acting with wisdom. Over time, this becomes second nature. You train your mind to step back before it steps forward, and your emotional life transforms. Many people underestimate the power of a pause because it seems small, almost insignificant. But in truth, it is one of the most powerful tools for emotional mastery. Every decision, every reaction, every interaction becomes more intentional when there is a pause. The pause prevents regrets. It prevents mistakes that come from acting impulsively. It prevents damage to relationships, careers, and personal integrity. And it allows emotions to serve you rather than control you. So, pausing is also a habit that grows with repetition. The first few times, it may feel unnatural. You may even think you are losing time or momentum. But the truth is, no moment is wasted when you use it to gain control over yourself. Each pause strengthens your emotional awareness, reinforces your responsibility for your reactions, and prepares you for the next challenge. Over time, you will notice a shift in your life. You will find that you react less impulsively, communicate more effectively, and make better decisions in the heat of emotion. Another important aspect of the pause is reflection. When you pause before reacting, you create the opportunity to ask yourself deeper questions. Why am I feeling this way? What does this emotion tell me about my expectations, values, or beliefs? How can I respond in a way that reflects the person I want to be? Reflection turns emotion into insight. It turns challenges into lessons. It turns instinctive reactions into intentional actions, and that is the essence of emotional mastery. The pause is not about avoidance or suppression. It is not about denying your emotions or pretending they do not exist. On the contrary, it is about facing them fully, observing them clearly, and then choosing how to act. When you pause, you acknowledge the emotion, honor it, and decide how to channel it. That choice is the difference between being a victim of circumstances and being the architect of your life. Each pause is a small act of empowerment, a signal to yourself and the world that you are in control. In practical terms, the pause can take many forms. It could be a deep breath, a count to 10, a short walk, or simply saying nothing for a moment. The form is less important than the intention. The intention is to create a space where thought precedes action, clarity precedes reaction, and choice precedes impulse. That space is the fertile ground where emotional growth happens. Without it, emotions rush in, decisions are clouded, and regrets are almost guaranteed. Pausing also strengthens relationships. In heated conversations, the instinctive reaction often escalates conflict. Pausing allows listening, understanding, and measured response. It allows you to respond to the words and intentions of others rather than reacting to your own assumptions and fears. Over time, people notice your calm presence. They respond differently. They trust you more. They feel safe in your steadiness. And that trust, that calm, that control becomes a foundation for deeper connections and better outcomes in every area of life. Creating space before reacting is a skill that transforms not just your emotional life, but your entire life. Every situation becomes an opportunity to practice. Every interaction becomes a chance to exercise control. Every emotional surge becomes a lesson in self-mastery. It is not always easy, and it is not always instant. But with repetition, awareness, and intention, it becomes natural. You move from being reactive to being proactive. You move from being controlled to being in control. You move from chaos to calm. The pause is where true strength resides. It is the bridge between emotional impulse and deliberate action. It is the moment where responsibility is enacted, awareness becomes applied, and mastery begins. Each pause is a victory over impulsiveness. Each pause is an act of self-respect. Each pause is a step toward the life you want to create, the relationships you want to nurture, and the person you want to become. Every time you pause before reacting, you remind yourself that you are not a slave to feelings. You remind yourself that you are capable of choosing your response. You remind yourself that power, control, and freedom are not given. They are claimed in the moments when you act with intention rather than instinct. The pause is not a single act. It is a lifestyle. It is the habit that turns emotional awareness into emotional control, and emotional control into personal power. In the end, the pause is simple but transformative. It is the moment where you step out of the rush, breathe, observe, and decide. It is the moment where emotion meets thought. It is the space where impulsive reactions turn into wise choices. The setbacks pause. When you embrace the pause, you embrace freedom, you embrace clarity. You embrace mastery over yourself, your life, and your destiny. Life does not happen exactly as you expect it to. Challenges arise. People disappoint you. Situations seem unfair. When these moments hit, it is easy to fall into negative emotions, to feel frustrated, discouraged, or even defeated. Most people experience life as something that happens to them, and their feelings reflect that sense of powerlessness. But the truth is that your perspective determines the impact of any situation. Reframing is the skill of looking at events, experiences, or people from a different angle, seeing possibilities instead of problems, opportunities instead of obstacles. So, it is the act of taking control of your perception so that your emotions no longer control you. Reframing begins with awareness. When a situation triggers a strong emotion, anger, fear, disappointment, pause and ask yourself, how else could I look at this? Most emotional reactions are amplified by the meaning we assign to events. You interpret actions, words, or circumstances through your beliefs, assumptions, and past experiences. Often, these interpretations are inaccurate or unhelpful. By consciously choosing to reframe, you separate the fact from your story about the fact. This allows you to respond with clarity rather than react with intensity. Perspective is a powerful tool because it shapes your emotional response. Two people can experience the same situation and react in completely different ways. One might feel victimized, overwhelmed, or frustrated, while the other sees it as a challenge, a lesson, or an opportunity for growth. The situation itself is neutral. It is your interpretation that creates emotion. Reframing is about shifting that interpretation intentionally. It is about looking for the learning, the hidden opportunities, and the ways you can grow from what is happening. When you do this consistently, your emotional life transforms. Reframing also allows you to take control of situations that feel uncontrollable. Many times, people feel powerless because they focus on what they cannot change. This creates anxiety, fear, and frustration. Reframing shifts your focus to what you can control, your choices, your actions, your responses. By doing this, you move from being a victim of circumstance to being an active participant in life. You may not be able to change every event, but you can always change how you see it and how you act in response. That is freedom. It is important to notice how language affects your perspective. The words you use to describe a situation shape how you feel about it. Saying, "This is terrible," creates a very different emotional response than saying, "This is challenging, but I can handle it." Reframing is often as simple as choosing words that reflect possibility rather than limitation. The mental shift that comes from language alone can change the way your body reacts, the way your mind analyzes the situation, and the way your emotions respond. Small adjustments in perspective can lead to dramatic changes in your emotional state and behavior. Reframing is not about denying reality or pretending problems do not exist. It is not about avoiding negative emotions. Life includes hardships, mistakes, and setbacks, and it is natural to feel disappointment, sadness, or frustration. Reframing is about placing these emotions within a larger context that allows for growth, learning, and resilience. It is about saying, "Yes, this is happening, and I will use it to become stronger, wiser, and more capable." That shift in perspective transforms obstacles into stepping stones and challenges into opportunities. When you reframe effectively, it changes the way you experience relationships. Conflicts with others often trigger strong emotional responses because of the stories we tell ourselves about their intentions. Reframing allows you to step back and consider alternative explanations for their behavior. Perhaps they are stressed, distracted, or unaware of their impact. This does not but it reduces the intensity of your emotional reaction and allows for a response that is thoughtful rather than reactive. Reframing strengthens communication, reduces unnecessary conflict, and deepens understanding. Reframing also applies to your view of yourself. Many people carry internal narratives that limit their potential. "I am not good enough. I cannot handle this. I always fail." These beliefs generate emotions that hold you back. By reframing your self-talk, you change the emotional response. Replace judgment with curiosity. Replace defeat with learning. Replace fear with possibility. When you do this consistently, your confidence grows and your ability to act effectively increases. You are no longer ruled by old stories, you are guided by constructive interpretations. Perspective can even change the way you approach goals and challenges. When progress is slow, setbacks are frequent, or success seems distant, the natural reaction is frustration or discouragement. Reframing allows you to see these moments as part of the process, as feedback, as necessary steps on the path to growth. Every mistake, every delay, every difficulty becomes information, not condemnation. The ability to reframe transforms patience from a struggle into a tool, persistence from an obligation into a strategy, and effort from a burden into an investment. Creating the habit of reframing requires practice. It is not automatic, and at first, it may feel forced or unnatural. But each time you consciously shift your perspective, you strengthen the mental muscle that allows for calm, measured, and empowered response. Over time, it becomes instinctive. Challenges that once triggered fear or frustration now spark curiosity and problem solving. Situations that once led to regret now inspire learning. Life becomes less about the ups and downs of emotion and more about the lessons and opportunities hidden in each moment. Reframing also encourages gratitude and appreciation. Often, people focus on what is missing, what went wrong, or what is frustrating. Reframing invites you to notice what is working, what can be learned, and what opportunities exist. Even in difficult circumstances, there is usually something positive to observe. Focusing on that shifts emotions from despair to hope, from irritation to calm, and from worry to energy. Gratitude is a natural byproduct of reframing, and it amplifies emotional resilience, mental clarity, and personal satisfaction. The benefits of reframing extend into every area of life. It affects your health because reduced stress improves your physical well-being. It affects your relationships because calmer, more thoughtful responses create trust and connection. It affects your career because challenges become opportunities to demonstrate skill, persistence, and adaptability. It affects your sense of self because you no longer identify with negative emotions. They are signals to observe and learn from, not chains to bind you. Reframing changes not just what you feel, but how you live. Reframing is also a tool for long-term success. Life is unpredictable and obstacles are inevitable. People who master perspective do not waste energy resisting what cannot be changed. They focus on what they can influence, and they find solutions where others see problems. They transform setbacks into lessons and challenges into steps toward growth. This is not luck. It is the deliberate practice of seeing life through a lens that empowers rather than diminishes. It is the skill that separates those who drift from those who thrive. The practice of reframing begins in small moments. When something irritates you, ask yourself, how can I see this differently? When you face a setback, ask, what can I learn from this? When someone behaves in a way that frustrates you, ask, what might be influencing them that I don't know about? These questions create a mental habit that gradually rewires your emotional responses. The more you use this skill, the more natural it becomes. You begin to notice that your emotions no longer dominate your decisions. Instead, your perspective guides your feelings, actions, and outcomes. In the end, reframing is about empowerment. It is about taking control of your mind and your emotions by controlling how you interpret what happens to you. It is about shifting from reaction to choice, from limitation to possibility, and from frustration to action. Consciously change your perspective. You weaken the power of negative emotions and strengthen your capacity to respond effectively. Reframing is not just a mental exercise. It is a life-changing habit that turns challenges into opportunities, difficulties into lessons, and emotions into tools for growth. When you embrace reframing consistently, your life changes profoundly. You stop being a victim of circumstances. You stop being ruled by fleeting feelings. You start seeing the potential in every moment, the lesson in every challenge, and the opportunity in every setback. Perspective becomes your ally, guiding you through emotional storms with clarity, calm, and confidence. Reframing is the key that allows emotions to serve you instead of controlling you, and mastery of perspective is a cornerstone of a life lived intentionally and fully. But emotions are powerful. They can lift you or they can weigh you down. They can inspire courage or trigger fear. They can motivate action or push you into inaction. The difference between being controlled by emotions and using them to your advantage lies in action. Once awareness, responsibility, pause, and perspective are in place, the final step is to channel those emotions into growth. This is the moment where internal energy transforms into tangible progress, where feelings become fuel rather than obstacles, and where life begins to move forward with purpose. Action starts with honesty. You cannot channel emotions into growth without first acknowledging what you feel. Anger, fear, disappointment, sadness, frustration, or even excitement, these are not weaknesses or burdens. They are information. They signal where attention is needed, where change is possible, and where energy can be directed. Acknowledging emotions gives clarity. It allows you to understand what is driving your thoughts and actions. Growth is impossible if you ignore or suppress feelings, because they will always find a way to surface, often in ways that are unhelpful or destructive. Once emotions are acknowledged, the next step is direction. Energy without direction is wasted. Emotions create energy. They increase heart rate, sharpen focus, and raise adrenaline, but that energy must be directed. That direction comes from choosing a constructive course of action. For example, frustration at a failed project can be channeled into refining skills or planning a better approach. Fear of failure can be channeled into preparation and careful execution. Disappointment in a relationship can be channeled into honest communication and problem solving. Every strong emotion carries the potential for growth if it is directed intentionally. Action also requires, without a clear outcome in mind, emotion can scatter, causing impulsive reactions or wasted effort. Growth comes when energy is focused on specific, meaningful objectives. Ask yourself, what outcome do I want? What steps can I take today to move closer to it? How can this emotion motivate me rather than distract me? These questions convert raw emotional energy into purposeful activity. The more precise the focus, the more effective the channeling of emotions. Energy that once caused stress or conflict now drives progress, skill development, and achievement. The physical body plays a crucial role in channeling emotions. Emotions manifest physically: tension, restlessness, fatigue, or agitation, but movement transforms them. Exercise, physical activity, even a walk or stretch, converts emotional energy into constructive physical output. People who master emotions understand the mind-body connection. They know that action is not just mental, it is embodied. By using the body to release intensity, the mind becomes clearer, and the energy of emotions is redirected toward growth rather than being trapped or misused. Action also requires discipline. Emotions are unpredictable, and initial impulses may not always align with long-term goals. Discipline is the bridge between emotion and productive action. It allows you to use the energy of feelings without being overwhelmed by them. It allows you to use the energy of feelings without being overwhelmed by them. Discipline turns bursts of anger, frustration, or excitement into deliberate effort. It turns impatience into persistence, resistance into adaptation, and fear into preparation. Growth rarely happens without sustained effort, and discipline ensures that emotional energy translates into results. Another essential aspect of channeling emotions into growth is reflection. After acting, review what worked, what didn't, and what lessons are embedded in the experience. Emotions are signals for learning. They tell you where you need to improve, where boundaries exist, and where opportunities lie. Reflection transforms action into growth by connecting experience with insight. Each emotional experience becomes a lesson. Each response becomes a skill, and each effort becomes a step toward mastery of yourself and your circumstances. Emotions can also fuel creativity and problem solving. Excitement and curiosity can spark innovation, while frustration can reveal inefficiencies or gaps that need attention. Fear can highlight potential risks that must be addressed. Channeling emotions into productive thinking creates solutions that would not have emerged from calm, neutral states alone. Emotions provide intensity, urgency, and focus, and action gives them structure and purpose. Together, they drive meaningful change in personal and professional life. Growth also comes from turning negative emotions into positive behavior. Anger at injustice can be transformed into advocacy or constructive change. Disappointment in performance can become motivation to train harder and improve skills. Anxiety about the future can be redirected into preparation and planning. Every emotion, no matter how uncomfortable, carries the potential to guide action that builds competence, resilience, and character. The key is not to resist emotions, but to use them strategically. Action creates momentum. One step taken in alignment with emotional energy leads to another. When you respond to feelings with purposeful behavior, you generate a chain reaction. Confidence grows because effort produces results. Motivation increases because progress becomes visible. Emotions that once felt overwhelming begin to feel empowering. The act of channeling emotions into growth reinforces the entire process of mastery, making it easier to repeat awareness, responsibility, pause, and perspective in the future. Accountability is another essential element in turning emotions into growth. Sharing your goals or actions with someone you trust or keeping a record of progress ensures that emotional energy is consistently directed toward meaningful outcomes. Accountability strengthens commitment and prevents emotional reactions from becoming wasted energy. It ensures that feelings of frustration, disappointment, or excitement are always converted into tangible action rather than being lost or misdirected. Action requires courage. Growth often demands stepping into discomfort, taking risks, or facing challenges that feel intimidating. Emotions can either paralyze or propel you. Fear, anxiety, or doubt, when acknowledged and directed, become fuel for courage. Every time you act in spite of discomfort, you expand your capacity for handling emotions and for achieving goals. Courage is not the absence of emotion, it is the ability to use emotion to move forward despite it. Each courageous act strengthens mastery over yourself and your circumstances. Persistence is key. Channeling emotions into growth is not a one-time effort. Life constantly presents new challenges, setbacks, and triggers. Each experience is a new opportunity to use emotion constructively. The practice of transforming feelings into action must be repeated, refined, and reinforced. Every day, circumstances will test patience, focus, and resilience. The difference between those who grow and those who remain stuck is consistent action in alignment with emotional energy. The ultimate outcome of channeling emotions into growth is personal empowerment. By directing feelings into constructive action, you no longer feel like a victim of circumstances. You gain confidence in your ability to navigate life, solve problems, and achieve goals. Emotional energy becomes a resource, not a liability. Challenges become opportunities. Setbacks become lessons. Discomfort becomes a signal for action. Life begins to feel intentional, purposeful, and achievable because your emotions are no longer controlling you. They are guiding you toward growth. Action also deepens self-awareness. Each step you take teaches you more about your reactions, your strengths, and your areas for improvement. You learn what triggers strong responses, how to manage impulses, and how to turn intensity into achievement. This self-knowledge compounds over time, making emotional mastery more natural and effortless. Every choice reinforces the understanding that emotions are tools to be used, not enemies to be fought. Finally, channeling emotions into growth builds a life of fulfillment. When every emotion is recognized, managed, and directed, you live fully. Energy is not wasted on regrets, resentment, or fear. Progress is visible, relationships are stronger, and personal development becomes inevitable. Emotions become allies in the pursuit of goals, dreams, and meaningful experiences. Life shifts from a series of reactive moments to a sequence of intentional, empowered actions that shape your future. When action is taken consistently, it completes the cycle of emotional mastery. Awareness allows recognition of triggers. Responsibility claims control over reactions. Pause provides clarity. Perspective reframes experiences. Action turns emotion into growth, creating tangible results, skills, and resilience. This is the path to true freedom. Mastering emotions is not just about feeling better, it is about living better, achieving more, and becoming the person you are capable of being. Emotions are not obstacles, they are fuel. Action is the vehicle that converts that fuel into progress. The moment you take control, direct your energy, and act with intention, you transform every challenge, every frustration, and every fear into growth. Life becomes a canvas for mastery, not a battlefield of uncontrollable feelings. Growth becomes inevitable, and your emotional life becomes a powerful force driving your success, relationships, and personal fulfillment.